Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're just going to be doing a quick video on this 10 blocks per second testnet that we saw around a couple of days on my channel. If you look here, we talked about this Kaspa Rust update for 10 blocks per second, and then I did a Kaspa speed. So if you want to check out the speed test, I basically reduced it down to one video here. But the testnet actually went live for Rusty Kaspa on 10 blocks per second, as you can see in the Discord here, in about 12 hours. So this was around 8 o'clock for me, so I'm in the UK. So as I woke up, this was actually coming on live and people were getting onto the network and starting to testnet. The first public 10 blocks per second experiment will go live on testnet. The purpose of the experiment is to monitor the performance of the Rusty Kaspa node when running 10 blocks per second under full transaction load. Keep in mind, this is the very first time proof of work network has ever run in a scale of this magnitude, and the network will plausibly crash several times within its first few days, possibly even minutes. But these are expected bumps in the road. This is a public experiment, which means anyone can do it, and then a detailed guide will be posted prior to the launch. It requires the hardware of 16GB of RAM, 100GB of SSD, and a CPU with at least 8 cores. If we see that the workload doesn't strain the machines, we might ask weaker hardware to join in. So if you have these hardware requirements, then you can go over to, I believe it's just on the Kaspa GitHub, and you can download the software to start running the Kaspa Rusty node. So as I said, that was about 5 hours ago from my time. So here we actually have testnet screenshots, and if you want to see a live version of this, there is a Twitch stream for Kaspa Currency. If we click here, we can see that the Kaspa Rusty node 10 blocks per second is running in the background. It's just, as it says there, a stream running on Discord. This is the memory usage, the CPU usage, and the VM running. And then without the actual stream running, it's only 2% of the CPU there. So it's basically just a live feed of the 10 blocks per second on Kaspa. So let's have a little look at this screenshot that we just showed previously. So it says there processed 143 blocks in the last 10 seconds. And then an average transactions per second of 156.2 transactions per block. So if we look here, we have 143 blocks in the last 10 seconds. So this means that it would be doing this number divided by 10. So it'd be 14.3 blocks per second. And then as you can see down here, it's 99 blocks. So it'd be 9.9 blocks per second, and then 9.6 blocks per second, and then 7.9. So overall, it could average out to 10 blocks per second. But as we know, there could be certain blocks that take longer, like we have with pretty much every proof of work currency. Some block times are shorter, some block times are longer. With like Ethereum, they had 13-second block times, that was the average. But if you looked on a chart, there was ones that would go up to 50 seconds and ones that could come down to 4 or 5 seconds. So this is what it's displaying here. This is why it's not exactly 10 blocks per second, but on average, across the whole network, it should be 10 blocks per second. And then over here, we have the transactions per block. So we take this number, 156.2, because this is the average transactions per block, and times it by this number divided by 10. So 14.3 times 156.2 to give us the transactions per second on the network. And when we do that calculation, we come out with a figure like this. I know not every 10 seconds it's going to be this, but this is under full workload, and we're looking at 2,233 transactions per second. Which, as we know from a couple of videos which I explained, this is at kind of the rate that Visa and MasterCard process their transactions. So on 10 blocks per second, you can have over 2,200 transactions per second on the network, which is pretty incredible for a proof of work coin. And it's the first time we've ever seen this kind of throughput in the network. And remember, speed is different to throughput. We already have the speed at the block times. We just needed the throughput to update that. And then we'd have both speed and throughput on the network. And as I said, if you want to check out a video on speed of the network, I did a test from Kaspa Wallet over to Zelcore. Now, I want to mention that there was obviously some updating of the servers from Zelcore. So I'm sure Kaspa Coin would have been faster coming into the wallet if I just did it between two wallets. However, the servers had to update for Zelcore, so it takes around 30 seconds to show in the actual wallet, but on the blockchain, it's done in 1 second. And then here we have a question. So naturally, a lot of Kaspa folks ask me when 10 blocks per second on the mainnet. The short answer is at least 6 months. This is coming from one of the Kaspa developers. and is roughly how it will go down. The 10 blocks per second client is running on a special testnet. This testnet is plain field where we try things and see how they work. So if you want to participate in that, I already left the details previously, but it's good for you to participate in it so we can get more data and we can roll out this 10 blocks per second quicker. There are still some loose ends we need to tie up before 10 blocks per second could be a candidate. All sorts of minor but crucial issues we need to resolve. Once we have a candidate for a hard fork, we'll stress test it at least a few weeks on testnet 11. After this is done, there will be a candidate. It would be moved to testnet 10 for at least a few more weeks. This mainly two reasons: the testnet 10 is much larger, and it would provide time for the ecosphere to prepare and adjust. Even after we decide a hard fork is due, it would be scheduled into the future. The new client would operate according to the old rules up to that point, and then a switch to new rules. This switch is highly tricky and should be tested several times on the testnet before it's applied to the mainnet. So that's the thing that we don't want. We don't want it switching over and basically ruining the network, because then that basically puts Kaspa in the dump and shows that the technology isn't all worked out yet. So, people will lose faith in the coin to eventually compete as a payment processor. So overall, we're looking at least 6 months before this comes online. It will probably be longer just because, when developing these things, there's always hiccups in the road that you can't really predict for, but it should be around 6 months time. It could be 7, it could be 8. So probably at the start of 2024. And then lastly, I just want to mention that Kaspa had a difficulty drop off. And if you mine there, I think you would have made 35% more Kaspa, depending on what you were mining on. But subsequently it came back. So it only lasted, if we click on this image, wait for it to load, we can see it lasted from, I want to say that's 2 o'clock maybe, up until 12 o'clock where it just spiked back up, and the difficulty is actually higher now. So maybe people were actually getting onto the network as they saw this difficulty drop because they saw that the profits would be way higher, and then subsequently it just sent the difficulty up higher. So that's a little update for you guys on Kaspa Coin and the Rust update for 10 blocks per second. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the update. And as I said, you can go watch a live version of this over at twitch.tv/KaspaCurrency. I'll leave links to all these in the description below.